Thank you for such a kind introduction. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of the conference. It's a pleasure to be here in Oxford and to talk about this highly topical issue, EMI. Well, my presentation is going to be divided into 6 sections. I will start with an introduction, let's say a bit the European perspective, to locate Spain and see where it lies at the moment as far as EMI is concerned. Then I will very briefly give some basic information about the Spanish higher education system, and then I will structure my talk based on Spolskil's framework of language policy. As you know, he divides it into 3 components. So I will be talking about language planning, also known as language intervention or language management, just the formulation of the explicit language policy. Then language practices, what stakeholders actually do. Because there may be a policy and what's done in class may be different. And then the third one has to do with language beliefs, or ideology. What the stakeholders think about languages, their use, and their attitudinal stance. Then I will briefly talk about assessment, focused on 3 aspects: English proficiency, content learning, and L1 academic literacy. And then I will try to arrive at some conclusions. I will start with a quotation, and I will wrap up with another quotation, quite different, from each other. The first one is a well-known one, probably you have come across it, by Otto von Bismarck, the statesman that unified Germany, and well, more than a century ago, he was asked to name the greatest political fact in modern times, and he responded that it was the inherited and permanent fact that North America speaks English. So we could say that this statement still holds true. Let's have a look at the study by Vacta and Mayworm. Very quickly. It's an interesting, let's say, state of the art. What they did, we had the previous presentation by Julie. We had the global one. This is focused on Europe. So more than 1,300 higher education institutions were surveyed. And they observed, because the study has been carried out in 3 different periods. First one in 2001, 2007, and 2014. So in 2001, they detected just what they call 725 ETP programs. In this case, is programs entirely taught in English. They didn't take into account mixed programs. Programs, for example, in Spain that would be taught some courses in Spanish and some in English. They didn't consider that. So it's a restricted view of EMI. What they observed was that in 2007 the number was more than 2,300. And 7 years later, more than 8,000. So that means that there has been, in a 7-year time span, an increase of almost 250% in the number of programs entirely taught in English. I would also like to point out that 80% of them are taught at the master's level. So that's where they are mainly aimed at. And then I'm going to focus on a few things about Spain that you will see are recurrent. Because, well, I was asked to talk about EMI in Spain. So in Spain is one of the few countries where foreign students' proficiency was rated higher than that of domestic students. Something to bear in mind. The second one, they were the most critical with the teaching staff's English competence. Still, 88% of the directors of the program said that the competence of their teachers was positive, good, or very good. But in all the other countries, it was well above 90%. And then, as for the administrative staff, only 28% of them could speak English. So it's 1 out of 4. That's a bit the general picture. Here you have, I'm going to go quickly through this, but I just want you to focus that there is a clear divide between the north and the south. Yeah? And the south, you can see the proportion, the first column is the proportion of higher education institutions offering English taught programs. Yeah? You can see that countries like Finland or Sweden, the percentages are quite high, 83, more than 80%. In Central Europe, we have, for example, Germany 43, the Netherlands 65. The situation in the south of Europe changes quite a bit. Yeah, there you have Spain, about 20%, but France, Italy, and Portugal, similar percentages. Yeah. Look then at the number of students involved, at the percentage. Is only 0.3% in the case of Spain. Yeah, much higher, as you can see, in other countries. But still, those are the percentages. Yeah. What about Spain? Well, the population, the current population is around 47 million, so it's the 5th biggest country in the European Union. Yeah, first one being Germany, 80 million, I believe. Yeah, then it's France, 65. The UK 64 and Italy 60. Okay, so those are the big countries. The number of universities 83, yeah, of which 50 are state funded, yeah, and 33 are private. And private institutions, as is the case in Turkey, we've just been told, yeah, they are proliferating, and there is almost a new one every year, yeah. One thing that I would like to point out, Spain is divided into 17 autonomous communities. Yeah? In 3 of them, in Madrid, Andalusia, and Catalonia, we will find about half of Spanish universities. Yeah? Rough figures, yeah, more or less. 1.5 million students. Yeah? What's interesting, because it directly impinges on EMI, is that out of the number of teachers is more than 115,000, yeah, but the vast majority of them are Spanish. So that means that the vast majority of the people delivering EMI courses are Spanish. For them, English is a foreign language. Yeah? 60,000 administration personnel, and as for the present foreign students at the graduate level is about 5%, much higher, 18% at master's level. One thing that I would like also to highlight is that Spain is the first country as for outgoing and incoming students within the Erasmus program. Yeah, so hopefully it also has to do with the academy. Yeah, but well, it seems that Spain is quite attractive. Yeah. So, as I told you, I'm going to divide the next sections are going to be based on those 3 components, yeah, which obviously interact, yeah, and intertwine. Well, language planning, Julie already mentioned it in her presentation. Yeah, it was in one of the slides. Yeah, in Spain, EMI, bilingual education, is considered a boat winner. Yeah, it's very widespread at pre-university level, especially in secondary education. Yeah, it's becoming very, very popular, and programs are mushrooming. Yeah, not as popular in higher education, but still, yeah, things are changing slowly but steadily. Yeah. Why? Well, because universities consider that it's a key component of internationalization, and most importantly is an asset in the labor market. As you know, we've been in the very heart of an economic recession, yeah, and that's been especially the case in Spain. Yeah, the unemployment rate was above 23%. Yeah. Currently, we are told that we are doing much better. It's only 22.4%, which is an amazing percentage. Yeah, so that's echoed in the press and everywhere. Yeah, that's from the New York Times. Yeah, an article. Yeah, which highlights that idea. Which says that many of our graduates have to seek work abroad. Yeah, but the main problem they face is that they don't have, they lack knowledge of foreign languages, especially English. Yeah, which is the lingua franca. Yeah. So, what about language policies? Well, they vary a lot. Yeah. As I told you, there are 17 autonomous regions. Yeah, and they work quite autonomously. Yeah, so you will find all kind of initiatives. Yeah, for example, the biggest university in Spain is the University Complutense in Madrid. Yeah, has more than 75,000 students. Yeah, so there it was a bottom-up initiative. Yeah, teachers were the ones that pushed the institution and said, well, we need to implement EMI. Yeah, whereas in other contexts, for example, my university, yeah, the University of the Basque Country, it was a top-down decision. Yeah, it was the rector and his team who put it forward. Yeah. There is great diversity in size, and that also has implications as for the implementation, yeah, because it's not the same to implement a language planning, for example, in the UCM, in the Complutense, where it's a huge institution. You have to send any change to the what we call the University Council, where all the stakeholders, trade unions are represented, and it has to be passed, or just pass a new language planning in a small private university with a few thousands, where what the rector says, yeah, usually makes very little fuss, yeah, and it's accepted, yeah. There is also diversity in the courses of action. It varies quite a bit. Yeah? For example, in the Canary Islands, the government decided that 5% of the offer in each degree should be through EMI. Yeah? In our case, we have the multilingualism program. Yeah? We have different courses depending on teachers' availability. Yeah? In other institutions, they've gone more for ETP. Yeah, entirely taught in English. Yeah, and in a few ones they are still deciding what to do. Yeah, so brought a range of language policies. Yeah, two things that I would like to highlight. Yeah, in many institutions, one of the common issues is that teachers are reluctant to take part in the EMI. Yeah, and the second one is that the vast majority of the language plannings make no reference to language objectives. Yeah, they are just set aside. Yeah, they don't even appear in the picture. Yeah, so we could say that in the case of Spain, EMI is the right label. It's English medium instruction. Yeah, in secondary education there is much awareness about the need to collaborate. Yeah, to, as Mustafa and Ernesto have shown us, yeah, the need to boost that collaboration between content and language teachers. Yeah, but at the university level, that's not the picture. I will show you in a few minutes some data. Yeah. In most cases in Spain, it's optional. Yeah. If you look at the language policy of institutions, what they usually do in some universities is they, what Saarinen calls the invisibility of English. English is not mentioned. Yeah, it's mentioned that, well, foreign languages, the use of foreign languages as means of instruction should be boosted. Yeah, English is not mentioned, but it's taken for granted. At my home university, yeah, if you look at the language planning, it says foreign languages. Well, the fact is nowadays 300 courses. Yeah, there are 7 in French, and the rest are taught through English. Yeah, that's the reality. Okay, the big problem in our context has to do with the students' proficiency. Yeah, if you have a look at those big European surveys, yeah, for example, the Eurobarometer published in 2012, yeah, in which there were 27 European countries, Spain was the 22nd. Yeah, they're lagging behind. Yeah, together with the UK and Ireland. Italy and Portugal and Hungary. Yeah, in those countries, more than 50% of the population are not able to hold a conversation in a foreign language. Yeah, whereas at the top, where you can find countries like Latvia, Sweden, the Netherlands, Slovenia. Yeah, they don't even reach at the double digit. Yeah, so that's an issue to bear in mind. Yeah. And a second one is already mentioned that international students, when we ask them, yeah, to self-evaluate, yeah, their proficiency, those who consider to be very proficient are 88%. Yeah, whereas that percentage plummets to 56% in the case of local students. Sorry, I'm going to make reference very briefly to an interesting study published by Ana Albach and Alberto Lázaro. It's very recent. Yeah, they were analyzing. Yeah, and they had a quite representative sample. Yeah, remember there are 83 universities. They were managed to survey the situation in 50 of them. Yeah, and they wanted to know what's going on with English. Yeah, whether is there any language requirement as for teacher, students. Yeah, and I've summarized there the main data. Yeah, so one thing which we already saw in the previous European studies, that there is a steady increase in the number of EMI courses. What about the students' language competence? Yeah, are they required to have any sort of, to reach any certificate by the end? Yeah, well, they saw that only 31 of those universities demanded their students to reach some kind of level in the European framework of reference of languages. 17 would require their students to reach a B1 level and 14 a B2 level. Yeah, but the rest don't even mention it. Yeah. One of the big issues is that there is no quality assurance. Yeah, and in fact, 1 out of 4 teachers, only 1 out of 4 have the C1, the advanced level. Yeah, so the rest, yeah, have either they have not been assessed, yeah, and for whatever reason they are allowed to teach through English, but when they've been, when the institutions that control the command of English, yeah, are only 1 out of 4, yeah. Very few methodological courses are provided, yeah, that's not an issue either, yeah. And what's interesting is in the study they mentioned that bilingual universities, those that are officially bilingual, are the ones in which the language planning is more developed, because there is already an awareness of languages in contact. Yeah, so I usually like to present this map, yeah, for one basic reason. If you have a look at it, you can see they're striped, the officially bilingual regions in Spain, yeah, Galicia, the Basque Country, Navarre, Catalonia, the Valencian Community, and the Balearic Islands. If you look at it, yeah, it may seem that, well, they are just a few of them out of the 17 communities, yeah, but you have to bear in mind that they are densely populated. That some Spanish regions like Castile-Leon or Castilla-La Mancha, yeah, are sparsely populated, yeah. So that means that more than 40% of the population live in officially bilingual regions. So roughly 40% of our students are enrolled in bilingual programs. So English comes as the third language. In the case of university, the percentage is, to be precise, 37.9. Okay, that's the percentage of students enrolled in officially bilingual regions. Yeah, so it's not a minor issue, I would say. And I'm going to briefly present an example of one of those multilingual universities. Yeah, it's the University Pompeu Fabra, and they developed what they call the Plan of Action for Multilingualism, which was passed in 2007. Yeah, and it relies on 4 principles. Yeah, the first one, they want to increase the presence of Catalan. Yeah, because the minority language, it has to be supported. But they also want to give English the status of a working language. Yeah, so that's why they developed what they call the principle of linguistic security, which means that before the beginning of the academic year, the teacher has to make it clear in which language the lectures are going to be delivered. Yeah, so this goes hand in hand with the protocol for managing multilingualism, because the teacher may decide to deliver his course in English, and then he has to stick to that decision. Materials, exams, and so on will be always in English, yeah, but the students have the right to choose any of the 3 official languages. So they can answer either in Catalan, Spanish, or English. Yeah, so it's flexible. It depends on the student. The student makes the choice. Yeah, in the language in which he or she feels more comfortable with, that's the language to be used. Okay, so this implies that the community needs to have at least passive knowledge of the three languages, okay? Which is, I believe, a nice way of implementing functional multilingualism, yeah? What about language practices, yeah? Well, this has already been highlighted, and in Spain, this is very much a fact, yeah? EMI teachers are not concerned about language, yeah? They say, no, I'm not here to deal with language, yeah? So the shift from Spanish to English is just reduced to a change in the language of instruction or obstruction, as we were told before, yeah? So most teachers believe that there is no need to adapt the teaching methodology, yeah? But when classes have been observed, for example, Dafoe and Sancho, they analyzed the same teachers teaching in Spanish and in English, and they observed, yeah, that in English, their stylistic variety was more limited, that the use of metalinguistic devices was poorer, and that the use of the language was less subtle. So there were obvious differences in all those levels. There have been some tandem teaching collaborative experiences, but most of them are on an experimental basis. They have been running for a few months, most of the times because of the interest of some researchers. Once the experience is finished, yeah, it's gone with the wind, yeah? That's the end of it, yeah? So there is no support, yeah, from the administration, and there is no help to support those collaborative practices. I'm going to present you a recent study I carried out with my colleague Antoine Doit, because talking about practice is nice to see and what's going on in the class, yeah? So we carried out at our home university, as you already know, officially bilingual in Basque and Spanish, yeah? And where we implemented what we call the multilingualism program, which is EMI, yeah? As I told you before. Well, we invited 13 teachers to come and talk about their EMI experiences. So we held 3 discussion groups, yeah? There you have their profiles. They were from 3 faculties: Faculty of Economics, Faculty of Engineering, and the Faculty of Communication and Social Sciences. And what's interesting, that most of them, as you can see there, were multilingual. Yeah, most of them managed in Basque, Spanish, and English, and some of them could even speak some French and some other languages. You see that they were quite experienced in general, yeah, and their EMI experience ranged from 3 years to 12 years, yeah. So we asked them, and what about the languages you use when you are in your EMI classes, yeah? And you can see that it was very homogeneous. They would say, well, when I am in class, I always use English. Yeah, I may fall back on Spanish when I need to explain some vocabulary, but the language I rely on is mainly English. That's the language I use. That's also the language I use for the materials, yeah, that I hand out and that I use in class. 2 of them would also use either Basque or Spanish or both, yeah, but the rest just English. And that was also mainly the case for exams, yeah. Only one of the teachers was flexible, and he would tell the students, well, I know you get very nervous, use the language you are happier with, yeah? That's fine with me. And some 2 other teachers, yeah, who would allow them to use the L1, but that's not the preferred option. The rest go for English, yeah? However, when we look at what happens once they leave the class, for example, in tutorials or when they are talking to the students outside their class, you see that there is quite a bit of change. Only 4 teachers remain using English, and the rest fall back on or use just Basque or Spanish or both. Yeah? So there is a clear-cut distinction between what's going on in the classroom and what's going on outside. Reasons for this, because these, as we saw, these colleagues are multilingual, yeah, but still they have a monolingual view of languages, yeah? 2 reasons that we would like to highlight, yeah, to explain these results. The first one is that we have strong and highly developed immersion programs at the pre-university level. And they were based on the Canadian models. And as you know, in the Canadian models, one of the tenets was that the languages had to be set apart, what Jim Cummins calls the two solitudes. Yeah? Well, that was borrowed from also in the Basque Country. Yeah? That's the model followed so far. And it's widely believed that the more English is used in class, the better our students' proficiency will be. That idea is also strongly entrenched. Yeah? However, when we were having the group discussions with them, they acknowledged that they had never thought about the use of the L1 in their classes, that didn't even come to their minds, and that maybe it could be a thing to consider. So that's where we want to follow up. In any case, we need observational studies. We need to, because these are self-perceived practices. We need to observe and see what's really going on there. Because it may be the case, as Haberland points out, in Denmark, those courses that are nominally taught EMI, on many occasions, Danish still plays a paramount role. Okay, and what about language beliefs? This is an issue. Spain is a multilingual country. So this is a big issue in our context. And that's why it's the most extensively researched one. There you have a few references. As for teachers, what are their beliefs? In general, they are quite favorable. But they show a clear-cut answer. When they are asked whether they teach EMI or CLIL, they clearly go for EMI. This is a study carried out by Aguilar in 3 Spanish universities. It's a 5-point Likert scale. From strongly disagree to strongly agree. Look at the score. They have no doubt. What we do is EMI, and I don't assess English. That's not part of my job. They, however, accept and acknowledge that they have no time to reflect on their teaching in English, and that's one of the big issues. They always complain. We are very busy. We have our teaching. We have our research projects, and there is really no time to share, to talk, and to share ideas. Reasons that are put forward. Why they don't shift to that integration of content and language. First of all, they highlight their proficiency is limited. They don't see themselves as language teachers. They have little time and little recognition. Some of them would say, well, I'm doing more than enough, taking the responsibility. On the positive side, however, when we talk about beliefs, there is a widespread agreement. They say, no, it has no detrimental effect on content learning. They learn the same as in my Spanish or my Basque group. What we teach and what the students learn is the same. Those are their beliefs. They are also highly positive. They will highlight that it's very important not only for students but for the institution as a whole. And they also highlight something which is not a minor point. They say, well, when you have a Spanish group in which there are 100 students, and that you choose the English group and it's just 20, that makes a difference. So they say our students are more motivated, smaller groups, and that makes my life easier. So there is some sort of, they try to find a balance there. On the negative side, the studies highlight that they have, as we have seen, more limited linguistic resources. A key word that we find in the analysis of our qualitative data, once and again, is the word effort. And they also complained about the time they need to adapt materials. They say, I can find easily materials in English, but I need to adapt them. And that needs time. A quotation. just to not to have just figures, yeah, and the real words, yeah. A teacher saying, well, it's very important for us, yeah, nowadays you need English, but it's also very important for the institution and the students, yeah. So there is, I told you that when we look at European surveys, when we look at the proficiency level, we are at the bottom. But when Spaniards are asked about the importance of foreign language learning in the government's policy, we are at the top. Yeah, so people are very much aware of the need to learn foreign languages. Yeah, please read the first one because I think it nicely summarizes one of those teachers. Yeah, wondering about the effort they have to put into it. Which is an issue. Yeah, some of them would say, well, you know, I'm already a bit old, yeah, to be here experimenting, but hopefully, so they always have that fight. Yeah, it's not as clear cut. All that glitters is not gold. Yeah, but still, yeah, they are very much aware of how important it is. Yeah, they see it as a challenge. They will highlight an adjective that we recurrently find in our data. Yeah, well, effort. Yeah. What about the students? Well, students are not so favorable in general. Yeah. If you ask them, they will tell you, yeah, I think we improve our speaking, our listening. Yeah. And they also believe that content is not affected. So this is recurrent. Yeah. Beliefs. We are talking about beliefs. Yeah. I'm going to very briefly show you some data about one of our studies because, as far as I know, it's one of the few ones that gathered the 3 university bodies, because the administration personnel is usually overlooked, yeah, and they play a huge part in many university aspects, yeah, university life aspects. This is a large study, a longitudinal one, so we have used all questionnaires, discussion groups, interviews, yeah, but I just want to very briefly, yeah, this has to do with the English medium instruction scale. As you will see, there is, just please focus on the right column, yeah, there is a clear-cut trend, yeah. Teachers and administration personnel are more positive than students in every single aspect. Yeah, in the only one in which there is a difference is when we ask them if they believe that university students are linguistically prepared to be taught in a foreign language. Yeah, and this is the lowest score in the case of teachers. Yeah, so they are not. As I told you, this is really an issue in Spain. Yeah. Another issue in our context has to do with the students' mother tongue and with the language they use in their everyday life. Yeah, that was a question. You see, the means, yeah, for students are quite low. If we ask them about EMI, yeah, in a 5-point scale, yeah, they are not so positive. Yeah, but what's interesting is to see that L1 Basque students are very much concerned about the impact of EMI on Basque and the presence of Basque at the university level, being the minority language, and they are the ones who are less positive towards the implementation of EMI. So there is some concern. Yeah, I have tried to choose some what I believe to be representative quotations, yeah, from our data. Yeah, the first one is from the administration personnel. They are very positive. Yeah, in the case of Basque, they would say internationalization is not at odds with Basque. Yeah, they can coexist. Yeah, the teaching staff would say, I would even say that it's beneficial to diminish the Basque-Spanish antagonism. Yeah, whereas the students' perspective is quite another. Yeah, they will say, well, I don't think more English will be in the benefit of Basque, or Basques losing presence and it's being downgraded. Yeah, so there is some tension there, underlying tension. And the final section, I will focus on assessment. Yeah. So far we have spoken about beliefs. Yeah, but do we actually have any research studies to underpin what's going on in EMI courses? Well, the answer is very few. Very few. Okay, I'm going to highlight one as for English proficiency. There are very, very few based, let's say, measuring, with serious analysis and so on. Most of them are impressionistic. I think. This is an interesting one, which was carried out by Aguilar and Muñoz. It's published in the International Journal of Applied Linguistics. And what they did is they asked teachers and students to fill out the Oxford Placement Test. So that was their measure. And they focused on listening and grammar. And what they observed was, in the pre and post, it was an EMI course, a 60-hour course, in an engineering faculty. And what they observed was that in grammar, there were no differences, no significant difference, but there was an improvement in listening. It was the difference was statistically significant. But what's interesting, that when they focused on the students, they divided them in 3 groups, depending on the results obtained in the first test. So they observed, they had 3 categories: elementary, intermediate, and advanced level students. The only ones that took advantage of the EMI course were the first ones, the ones in the at the elementary level. An important factor to bear in mind is that, remember, there were 7 teachers involved. 2 of them had a lower intermediate level, 3 an upper intermediate, 1 advanced, and 2 very advanced. So one of the conclusions is, well, there may be a clear-cut correlation between teachers' command of the language and students' improvement. The second study I'm going to mention is focused on content. Very few, once again, very few. By the way, there is one in the board, of the Spanish section there. I just wanted to whet your appetite. I'm not going to mention it. If you are interested, go and have a look at it. This is an interesting one carried out by Dafoe and her colleagues, and they had 2 research questions. Does EMI affect students' academic performance? And does the performance vary depending on the subject course? So they had 3 different courses: financial accounting and financial management, and economic history. In some of those subjects, well, numbers play a more significant role, whereas, for example, in economic history, language is really plays a major role in all cases. But there may be some difference there. That was their initial idea. What's interesting is they compared students who were taught in Spanish and students taught in English. And they were matched. What they used, we have the university entrance exam, and they were compared, and there were no differences between those 2 groups. So they were comparable groups, and the assessment was based on oral and written coursework, 40%, and a final exam, 60%. There you have the table, and as you can see, the means are always a bit higher on the part of the EMI students, but what's important is that they are not statistically significant. So there were no real statistically significance in those differences. So the results were the same. No differences depending on the language of instruction. And the third aspect that is very important is how EMI may affect L1 academic literacy. And that's something that may be of concern in Northern Europe, but it's not a problem in Southern Europe. In fact, I don't know of a single study that has focused on this aspect. So that's why I couldn't show you any study. And believe me, I've been checking quite a few places, and I've found none. Why? Because, well,